This edition of MacVoices is sponsored by lynda.com, the unparalleled online video training library. For a free 10-day unlimited trial, visit lynda.com/MacVoices. And by Take Control Books, the answers you need now from leading experts. Learn more and download yours at takecontrolbooks.com. Welcome to Mac Notables on MacVoices. This is the Talk of the Mac community. I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, after another one of his jaunts across the country, we have Mr. Ted Landau back in his seat, in his study, right where he belongs. Ted, it's good to see you.
Good to see you too. And as I recall, it wasn't just me that was leaving. You were gone for a while too. And
yeah, that's true. Okay. All right. I can't escape it. I can't escape it. But we're back now, and yes. Boy, has a lot of stuff happened since we left.
Yeah.
And I guess we start, at the top of the show, we'll take the thing that's obviously probably uppermost on most folks' minds, at least if you're into what we're into here on MacVoices and Mac Notables, and that is Apple's March 9th event, where we expect to see the Apple Watch unveiled.
Yes, we do.
Will we see the... Will we see the Apple Watch unveiled, Ted?
Oh, yes, we will. There's absolutely no doubt about it. I mean, they said the watch is going to go on sale in April, and so it would be earth-shaking if there was an Apple event in March that didn't mention the Apple Watch. Yes, so I think it's a given that's going to happen. And as to what else is going to happen, I would say not much else. There is talk that it would be a good time to update the Apple TV, which is true. Yesterday would be a good time to update the Apple TV. So it's been a while since it's been updated, and there's been some talk that this might be an especially good time because maybe there'll be some Apple Watch features that integrate with an Apple TV, where the watch acts sort of like a remote control for the Apple TV. So, and if that's so, you'd probably want another revision to the Apple TV, and so yeah, maybe I would like to see an Apple TV come out. Some of the things that I'd like to see, I think we've talked about this before, so I won't spend much time on it, but I'd like to see an Apple TV that allowed you to download apps, so to speak, the way you can with an iPhone, and matching more like the Roku, where you start getting more and more stations. I'd also like to see the Apple TV beef up its ability to act as a game device. They you can have Bluetooth game controllers now, and if you could get that to work with games that are specifically designed for the Apple TV, I think that would be cool. So there's lots of room for the Apple TV to improve. And maybe we'll see it. What else? I would say probably nothing else. There's the rumors of the Retina MacBook Air coming out. I don't see that being announced here. Just too much for one, and too out of what the main purpose of the thing is. And I really don't see anything else. I personally am waiting till what I imagine will be later this year, where we'll hopefully see some new iMacs, and probably some new MacBooks too, including the Retina Air. There's been a long time for the Intel processor upgrades. Roswell, I think, is the one that's coming up next. I'm not sure. And there's already another one in the pipeline. And I was just reading an article the other day that it's going to support the Thunderbolt 3 specification, which is due out later this year. And according to this article, which I find hard to believe, they said with Thunderbolt 3, you could transfer a complete high-definition movie from one drive to another in a second. So, but they said, and certainly Thunderbolt 3 will also be enough to support external Retina display monitors with just a single wire, a single cable connecting them. And so you'll be able to get a Retina display iMac and have a second Retina display if you wanted to attach to it, which you can't do now. So I'd like all that, but apparently you have to wait for 2 Intel processor upgrades before that happens, and probably wouldn't happen until like December or something like that. So there's a lot that could happen with Apple this year, but most of it isn't going to happen this time around. This is going to be Apple Watch focused.
I guess I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe a speed bump on something, but it's hard for me to believe that. The Apple TV comment is an interesting one. Unless there's something that has a direct correlation to the Apple Watch, I'm like you. I would be kind of surprised to see something else take anything away from that. Because Apple usually likes to get so much press out of these things, and admittedly, a speed bump or whatever wouldn't be a big deal, but it feels like this is going to be very focused.
Yeah, this is not, the events in the fall seem more broad in scope. It's like, here's what we're doing this year, and we only have, they typically now they only have 2 events in the fall, one in September and one in October, and everything that they're announcing for the year tends to get announced in those 2 events, a little bit maybe in WWDC as well. So they cover a lot of ground, but this is not the time of year that they have a cover a lot of ground sort of event. And I think I'll be surprised if it goes far beyond the Apple Watch. But I've been surprised before. Won't be the first time.
Part of me says that we'll see some developers on stage with the Apple Watch talking about what they have or what they will very soon have. I think the thing that's going to make this one unique is the fashion aspect. We've seen Apple Watches being marketed in places and magazines and in different ways, pre-marketed, I guess I should say, that we've never seen before. And so while I don't expect there to be a runway at the Yerba Center, it makes you wonder just what they can do from a fashion perspective that will appeal to people, will be that much different since this one seems to overlap into a brand new space for Apple.
Yeah, well, I mean, the 2 big things that I expect from the Apple Watch announcement, number one is finalized features. We'll finally know what's in and what's out. We've heard rumors about Apple has dropped certain features that they hoped to initially include because it was getting too complicated and wasn't reliable. And so whatever they decide to include or not include, are there some new features that they didn't announce that are going to surprise us, like the Apple TV integration? We'll find out. And the other big thing that we're going to find out is how much these are going to cost, because all Apple has officially said so far is that they start at $350. Where they finish, nobody knows. And they're expecting finishes in the tens of thousands, so we'll find out.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a really interesting point. I mean, this has been analyzed to death, and we're sure not going to repeat it here. But I still think that it's really interesting that it's called an Apple Watch, because it's going to do so much more than the watches, than any watch that probably either one of us have ever seen. If not in the first iteration, then the next. But people are comfortable with something strapped around their wrist called a watch, and so that's a good way to market it.
Yeah. I remain cautiously skeptical. Cautious because betting against Apple seems like a bad idea. Apple has not had a major failure with a product launch in many a moon. I mean, you have to go back to the G4 Cube or something like that. So saying that somehow this Apple Watch is going to be unsuccessful, I don't think is a good bet. And also, it doesn't have to capture, it doesn't have to sell as many, you don't have to sell as many Apple Watches as Apple sells iPhones in order to call it a success. I mean, it could have a relatively small total sales for the first iteration and still be a good seller, because these wearable devices just aren't that much of a runaway hit now. And Apple could be number one in the market for all we know and still not sell a heck of a lot of them. All of that said, I still contend 2 things. One is people, especially younger people younger than me, which is almost everybody these days, have been moving away from watches. Less and less people are buying watches. They just see it as unnecessary. The iPhone in their pocket is sufficient, or a smartphone in their pocket is sufficient for keeping time, and they don't spend the money on a separate watch. And so this is going to have to reverse that trend if it's going to be successful, which it could do. And the other thing is for me personally, I still, at the price, it needs to have a reason for its existence to do something that is beyond what an iPhone can do. The idea that 90% of what the Apple Watch is going to do is save you the trouble of taking your iPhone out of your pocket I don't think is going to be enough to want people to spend hundreds or even thousands of dollars to run out and get one. And I think it will do that eventually. I can imagine ways in which it will be much better than taking your iPhone out of your pocket. I'm just not sure that the first one is going to excel at that. And we may have to wait for a second or third generation before we see what the Apple Watch is really going to become.
Do you wear a watch, Dad?
No. I had, actually, I like wearing a watch. I like the idea of being able to tell time without bothering to take my iWatch out of my pocket. And I got a watch about a year and a half ago that I liked. It kept breaking down. I wound up taking it back to the dealer like 3 times to have them fix it. It was a decent price watch. It was not a cheap piece of crap by any means. And finally, they took it back and gave me a full refund and said I could buy something else if I wanted to. And I said, I'm taking this as a sign from Apple that I shouldn't be getting a watch. So I stopped wearing a watch, and I'm going to wait and see whether I'll get an Apple Watch or not.
I'm curious. Have you paid any attention to the Pebble Kickstarter?
A little bit. I'm familiar with the original Pebble, and I see the announcements of the one that was announced a couple of days ago, but I haven't spent a lot of time looking at it.
I just was curious. Today, as we record this, they announced the new Pebble Steel, and allow the Kickstarter people to upgrade or supplement their orders if they want to. I look at that, and I think there are a lot of people that are enthusiastic about the Pebble, but it still is one of the best looking watches out there. It actually has a bit of an ecosystem in place. I'm wearing one thanks to Adam Angst and Jason Snell, who talked me into it. And so I see the benefits of a smartwatch, whatever that means, a wrist device. And I'm hoping the Apple, even it far exceeds this. But I think when you start raising that kind of money in the time that they did, there's a lot of pent-up demand for something like this. People, it's not just a fashion thing. I mean, the Pebble, with all due respect to the Pebble, it's not a fashion piece. New one looks better than the old one does, but it's still not a fashion piece. It's a function piece. And a lot of people are putting down a whole pile of money to put one of these on their wrist.
Well, like I said, it will sell. The Apple Watch will sell. It will likely be described as a success. I just don't expect it to be the sort of success that the iPhone or the iPad was until a couple of generations go by. So we'll see.
Have you decided which model you're getting?
I haven't even decided I'm getting one for sure yet. But I probably, I wind up getting these things. I wind up justifying to myself getting these things because of you and I sitting here. I said, well, it's part of my job to get these things. Even if I don't like it, I have to get it. Somebody's got to do it. So it becomes a convenient excuse for me to spend money on things that I otherwise might not. So I'll probably get one just for that reason. Whether I keep it on my wrist and use it, and whether I think it's wonderful or not, remains to be seen.
Yeah, I'm kind of waiting to see what the price points are with the various options. Because do I want one? Yes. I'm going to get one. Yes. Which one? Haven't quite decided, because I'd like to see what the first feature set is, so I have a better idea as to whether I would be upgrading to another one when the next iteration comes out, or whether I'd be most likely to stick with this one.
Absolutely. We talked about that in a previous time that we sat here, the whole upgrade problem. And the more expensive the watch becomes, the more dubious it is, in my view, of paying that money when you can expect, Apple Watch 2.0 to come out a year from now. And when you look how the iPhone has evolved over the 7 or so years that it's been out, I can't imagine that 2 or 3 years from now, an Apple Watch will even resemble the one that comes out now in terms of feature set. And so until I know what the upgrade policy is, there might be a lot of the cost of of a watch might be in the band. And so it may be that you'll be able to keep keep the band and just add a new watch, and that will minimize the upgrade costs. There are a lot of unanswered questions, but certainly there's no way that I'm going to spend $2,000 a year on getting a new Apple Watch just because that's the price of the model that looks attractive to me. It's just not going to happen.
No, not that kind of money. I mean, I'm sorry, but I would not spend that kind of money on any watch under much of any circumstances. Certainly not a Gen 1. but there are people out there that do.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
Yeah.
Not me.
So what are the chances of seeing an announcement of an Apple car?
Oh, yes, that's going to be an accessory. You know, you buy the $100,000 Apple Watch and it comes with a car.
Yeah. There you go. I like it.
That's what I'm thinking.
I have to give Brian Chaffin a lot of credit. He did some detective work, and he was one of the first ones, not the first necessarily, but among the first ones to talk about this. And now it appears that we have confirmation that Apple is indeed working on an Apple car of some kind in some fashion.
Well, we have confirmation that their documentation description includes that possibility. I wouldn't call that a true confirmation that they're doing it, but maybe I'm just more cynical or skeptical or whatever than Brian is.
I don't know. I posted a piece on my blog, and I'm not a car guy, but trying to figure out what could happen if a car had a complete rethink from the ground up, with no baggage, with no, none of the things that I think hinder it. If you were building a car from day one with modern materials, modern techniques, what could it do? What could it look like? Not just appearance-wise, but function-wise.
Well, some of this gets into the same problems that we talked about with the idea that Apple might sell actual televisions, 50, 60-inch, 70-inch televisions. That the rumor that has been circulating ever since the Steve Jobs biography seemed to hint at that. And that is, it's a whole different technology from anything Apple has done. It's a much bigger leap than the television one. I mean, the automotive technology is you can't, in my view, you'd be very hard pressed to develop a car from scratch entirely on your own, or within house, so to speak, and keep it a secret. I mean, you need assembly lines, you need factories. I mean, it would be hard for Apple to have all that infrastructure and have nobody even speculate as to what's inside that building or something like that. And not to mention that it involves having to build all sorts of things that are not even close to what Apple's done. I mean, okay, a television is not what Apple's been selling, but they've been selling cinema displays, which aren't that different from a television. But Apple doesn't sell anything that has four wheels and an axle and an engine and an exhaust system and whatever, or even if it's battery powered. And all that infrastructure requires an incredible amount of work. I could imagine a couple of things. I mean, I could imagine that Apple might be working, two things I could imagine. Apple might be working with a combination of software and hardware that is a much larger scale than CarPlay is today, and that could be integrated in a variety of cars as opposed to just building a car on their own. Or I could even imagine that Apple might be secretly working with some established car company to develop something that will be an Apple logoed car. That the Apple logo will be on the car in the same way that Toyota logo is on Toyotas, but that it won't be manufactured by Apple. It will be manufactured for Apple by somebody else. That could happen, I suppose, too. Beyond that, I have trouble. There's an article that was linked from Daring Fireball, John Gruber's blog, that made the point. They said, if Apple really wanted to get into the car business, given the amount of money they have, and they have a lot of money, by the way. I was reading something that said, since the year 2000, I guess about 15 years, Apple stock has gone up almost 3,000%. That's a hard number to wrap around.
Wow.
A 30 times increase in 15 years. In any case, if Apple really wanted to get into the car business, they would probably do something like they did with the headphones. They bought Beats headphones, and they bought the Beats music service, of course, which some people said was even more important than the headphones. But they just outright bought it rather than trying to completely start over on their own. And more than the Beats purchase, it would seem to me that if Apple wanted to sell cars, they would buy a car company, maybe Tesla. Or something like that. So rather than try to figure out how to develop a car factory entirely on their own. So I see room where Apple could come out with some sort of car, but the idea that Apple is somehow going to come out with something called an Apple car and there's going to be one in every Apple store. that you can sit in and try and decide, do I want to get an iPad or a car? You know, I mean, I just can't see that happening anytime soon.
Well, I take us back to the watch for a second. There's been a lot of discussion about how the Apple Watch will not just be sold in Apple stores. So if they did a car, you know, I don't know that they'd be necessarily restricted to their current distribution chain. In fact, if anything, it would almost be impossible to do that. But the whole thing just really intrigues me for the same reason that Apple wasn't building a phone and all of it, and they came in and they rethought a lot of things. They combined it with a lot of things, and I think you've kind of hit on the CarPlay thing, the idea that, okay, maybe the hardware isn't as important as the software. And if you then adjust the hardware a little bit to fit the software, wow, you know, there are a lot of things that are restricted now to high-end vehicles that could become a lot more commonplace. There are a lot of creature comfort things that could become a lot more accessible, and you could control it from your iPhone or your Apple Watch.
Well, I have no doubt that Apple is working on something car-related. Whether they're actually working on a 100% nuts and bolts, you know, top to bottom car, I'm more question about. And the point you raise actually about distribution is a good one. I mean, where would Apple cars be sold exactly? At a Nissan dealership? I mean, I don't know. I mean, are they going to start a chain of Apple car dealerships? I mean, it's not a simple thing to do. And again, Apple has so much money, they could do whatever they wanted. If they wanted to start a chain of dealerships, I'm sure they could and still have plenty of money left over. It just doesn't seem to me something that they're going to be interested in doing.
I don't know. It is fun to speculate a little bit and think about the possibilities, and then Apple will probably come out and blow us all away.
Well, we'll see. Yeah. If they come out with an Apple car before an Apple television, that will be interesting all by itself.
Actually, you brought up the Apple television thing. I think there's actually more room in the car space than the television space for innovation, because depending on how it would be powered. If it's powered by solar or batteries, that's one thing. If it's powered by gas, that's another thing. But those are things that Apple doesn't need to control. I mean, they're already out there all over the place. The Apple television, we've had this discussion. You know, there's a factor there that they can't control that they can live and die by, and so I don't think they want to necessarily play in that space. Yeah.
Well, still, I mean, I can't see Apple worrying about, you know, brakes and suspensions and whatever, and axles, and it's just a world. It's an analog world, even in a battery-powered car, that goes so far astray from what Apple deals with. I mean, everything that Apple makes has been working towards eliminating moving parts. They're going to go something that survives on moving parts. So,
wow, that's interesting. Yeah. Okay, well, hey, we'll see. We'll see. Today's edition of Mac Voices is brought to you by lynda.com, the unparalleled online video training library. I've been telling you about lynda.com for some time now, telling you about how they offer over 3,000 courses on topics like web development, photography, visual design, and business, as well as software training like Excel, WordPress, Photoshop, and a whole lot more. Telling you about how you can watch what you want, where you want, how you want on your Mac, iPad, or iPhone, making it easier to learn on your schedule, not on someone else's. Telling you that you can get a 10-day free trial to watch as much as you want on any subject that you wish to know more about. And that all still holds true. But something I've only touched on briefly are the series that lynda.com publishes on a regular basis. Short and sweet, they keep information flowing to you on a specific topic from some of their very best authors. Series like Video Gear Weekly with Richard Harrington and Robbie Carmen, Pixel Playground with graphics guru Bert Monroy, and Deek's Techniques with Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop master Deke McClelland. In fact, there's so many facets to lynda.com that they even had Garrick Chow produce a course to help you get the most out of lynda.com. I'm not going to tell you that's where you have to start, but you might be surprised at the depth of lynda.com's offerings that go beyond just the videos. There may be a few things lynda.com can't help you learn, but they're few and far between. Because with courses on design, business, software applications, education, and many, many more, there's not only something for everyone, there are lots of somethings for everyone. I could spend the next few hours trying to cover all the titles and topics that lynda.com has to offer, but I'd rather have you go and find out what interests you by visiting lynda.com/MacVoices and sign up for your 10-day free trial. Then explore to find out just how much lynda.com's courses can benefit you and your business, or your hobby, or both. That's lynda.com/MacVoices for 10 days of free, unlimited learning. How can you not take advantage of that? Thanks to lynda.com for their support of MacVoices. Another thing that happened since we were together is that one of our friends and colleagues and a fellow Mac notable, Chris Breen, has decided to step away from Macworld and step to, as has been said so many places, a noted fruit-named company in Cupertino.
Yes, I wonder what that is exactly.
Yeah, Chris wouldn't tell me. And we've seen a couple folks go this direction, Ted, and I don't know. I mean, there have been the conspiracy theorists that Apple's buying up the journalists. I don't think I quite buy that, but it's interesting that they are reaching out to
what end? I mean,
yeah.
So there are no journalists anymore that don't work for Apple. I don't see that as a strategy that Apple is pursuing. But okay.
No, I agree. But I just think it's interesting that a lot of these people that are experts or they're exterior Apple experts are being pulled inside. And I don't know if there's anything there, or whether they're just very qualified people, and Apple's always hiring very qualified people.
Well, that's all I assume it is. I mean, suddenly, as we all know, Macworld magazine cleared house, so to speak, and laid off a whole bunch of people. Virtually everyone that I was familiar with on the staff got laid off, starting with Jason Snell and working its way down from there. And technically, Jason may not have been laid off. I don't remember the exact terminology, but they're all gone. That's the point. So there were a lot of people looking for work all of a sudden that weren't looking for work a year ago. Some very talented people looking for work. And as job openings open up in Apple, I guess it's not surprising that some of those openings get filled by some of the people that left Macworld. That would certainly make sense if the Macworld people are appropriate for the job. And that's what seemed to happen with Chris. I think Chris, I spoke to Chris, and I don't think I'm revealing any confidence to say that he was looking for other job opportunities after the massacre, so to speak, at Macworld, and this one opened up, and he took it. So yeah. It's a difference for me. Chris having staying at Macworld was a big deal to me because it represented some continuity for me. The primary thing that I was writing for Macworld was the bugs and fixes column. And that was under the Mac 911 heading, which is what Chris did. And so when things changed, my writing bugs and fixes remained largely the same. I wrote it, I submitted it to Chris, Chris took care of it, and that was the end of it. So really, it had very little effect for me. When I wanted to write something other than a Mac 911 column, the rules changed a little bit for that. But even there, Chris helped me negotiate what was new and different, and so that encouraged me to stay on. When I saw that Chris was leaving, my first thought was, well, that's it. Everyone I know at Apple at Macworld is now gone. Glenn Fleischman took over for Chris, and he is somebody that I know, and so that I might make a difference, but he's also very new. He's not someone I'm going to turn to get experience advice of how working within the Macworld environment. So basically, it encouraged me to think more about my own retirement and whether Chris leaving might be a good time for me to unofficially leave Macworld as well. I have no official title at Macworld. I'm not a salary employee. So, if I wake up in the morning and say I'm not working for Macworld anymore, then that's the end of it. And I'm not really saying that. I'm not prepared yet. In case anyone from Macworld is listening, I'm not prepared yet to say that I never intend to write for Macworld again. I'm sort of inching my way towards retirement and writing less and less, as I'm sure you've noticed in general. And Chris leaving is certainly just another thing that encourages me to do that.
I don't want to see you put the pen down, or I guess that's a reasonable analogy. Yeah, I don't want to see it. I mean, there's still a lot of good people. Susie Oakes has come in, and she seems to be doing. In fact, she is doing a great job. You know, Macworld is different, but it's an evolution, and I know they're relying a bit more on contributors, but there are a number of contributors that you and I both know, and a lot of contributors that a lot of the folks know. So, and Glenn, you know, when I heard he was taking over, it's like, wow. Completely different style, but extremely credible, extremely knowledgeable.
Oh, he'll do a great job, I'm sure.
Yeah, so I felt like, wow, that's, you know, what could have been a big smoking crater, you know, okay, got backfilled, you know, quite a bit, and the fire's out, and Glenn is pushing the Macworld podcast forward. And
yeah, but you have to understand, for me, it's a different thing. I mean, these are people that I know for decades. I mean, some of them, like Chris, go back to when Chris and I were working at Mac User, never mind Macworld. And so, I mean, and Dan Frakes, you know, was someone that I've been close to for decades, and and on and on and on. So to have all of them go, even if they're replaced by competent people, it's still not the same thing for me. And at this point in my career, you know, I have the luxury of saying, well, if I don't like it, I don't have to do it. And so I'm just thinking about it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, just keep thinking. Don't do anything. Just keep thinking. Put it off as long as we can. The other thing that we had on the agenda here, a while back, you had talked about the fact that you got a Ring doorbell. And I was anxious to do a little follow-up and see what your experiences have been and whether it's lived up to your expectations.
Overall, my reaction is very positive, and I would recommend the Ring for people who want something like that. It's still a bit rough around the edges. They're still releasing new features, like the motion detection feature is not everyone even has it yet. I just got it today, coincidentally enough. And they could use some help in their documentation. For instance, I had a problem where I wanted to add Naomi, my wife, to the device so that she would get the alerts as well as me. And there was a shared user section, and I added her name as a shared user, and nothing happened. And so she wasn't getting the alerts. And so I said, well, you know, what went wrong? What do I do? How is it? I wasn't even sure what was supposed to happen. Was there something that Naomi had to do on her end to sort of accept an invitation or something like that? So I went online to see what I could learn about how it was supposed to work, and there wasn't one thing. I entered several Google terms. I searched the Ring website. I couldn't find any mention other than the fact that, every once in a while someone said, "And you can add a shared user. Isn't that great?" I said, "Yeah, it would be great if I knew how to do it." But exactly, how to solve my problem, there was no mention anywhere. I eventually had to call the phone number for Ring support, and we eventually saw there was something that was wrong, and we eventually worked it out, and now it's working. But that kind of frustration shouldn't be necessary. It should be better than that. Okay, so those are some of the negatives. On the positive side, it does exactly what it says it's supposed to do, and it does a good job of it. Number one, it records a video. Well, it alerts you when someone rings the doorbell. You get alerted, obviously, that someone's rang the doorbell, and it will start. And as soon as you accept the alert, it starts recording video, and it will then save that so that you can review it later. And it worked. Like we tried it, it worked fine. Of course, more importantly, for security purposes, it allows you to see who's there. So even if you don't record, if someone rings the doorbell and maybe you're home alone at night, you're a bit worried who might be there. You don't want to just open the door for a stranger. It allows you to easily see on your iPhone, in very good, clear definition, who it is that's at your front door. And beyond that, We set it up. It's a little unusual setup we have here. Our doorbell, our wired pre-existing doorbell is on the side of the house, very low down, an inappropriate location to install this device. And so we wound up setting it up instead entirely wirelessly, and putting it on our door. And so now we have two doorbells. And what makes it kind of nice, even if someone doesn't use the Ring doorbell, now with this motion detection feature that's been added, it will alert you when anybody is near the front door, even if they don't ring the doorbell. And it worked. It alerted us today when the mailman came to deliver our mail. It just said there's somebody out your front door. He never rang their doorbell, either one. He just dropped mail in the mail slot and left, and we knew about it. So it worked perfectly well. You can adjust the range and sensitivity so it doesn't detect cars out on the street as motion, and it's really good. I've read online criticisms of it, and most of the criticisms seem kind of petty. I mean, one person, for instance, complained that if you install the wireless version, I mean, it's not the same version, but if you install it wirelessly instead of connecting it to the wires of your existing doorbell, then you have to charge the battery once a year. And he complained, oh, another device I have to remember to charge. Okay, once a year? I mean, come on. It doesn't seem... And another person said, oh, it's too expensive. I could build a cheaper one myself. And I'm going, well, okay, maybe you could. There's no way that I'm going to build a cheaper one myself. There's no way I'm going to build a more expensive one myself. I can tell you, there's just no way that's going to happen. So that's irrelevant information to me. And probably the biggest complaint, and the one I have a little bit of sympathy for, is that if you want to save your videos that are taken when somebody answers your door, they are saved to a cloud, and it costs you $30 a year to have access to that cloud service. If you don't do that, nothing gets saved. And people say, well, they could save it locally. Yeah, saving it locally would be nice, except if you have 3 or 4 or 5 devices that are all accessing it. I have 3 right now: my iPad, my iPhone, and my wife's iPhone. And if it gets saved to my iPhone, it doesn't do my wife very much good. And so, well, maybe, then I suppose they could say, well, you could allow it to be saved like to Dropbox, so you could pick a cloud service on your own that you already are paying for. Yeah, I suppose that would be nice, but still, I think $30 a year for an optional feature that even if you don't do it, the device is still quite useful. If that's the way Ring wants to try and make money, I say fine, let them try and see how it works. It wouldn't be a reason that I would say not to get it. So I wasn't impressed with most of the criticisms. I like it overall.
A couple things I want to make sure. First of all, that we get this clear. You have, other than the cloud, saving it to their cloud, you have no option to save it locally.
That's correct.
Okay, got that. The wireless thing. So you can you have no connection to your existing doorbell. You have no power. You have no nothing. And the battery will hold up for a year of average use. That strikes me as pretty good.
That's what they claim in their manual. I obviously haven't had it for a year to ascertain that, but that's what they claim. Yeah.
Okay. I really like that, because that way nobody has to be messing around with any wires. And like you said, you have complete flexibility about where you want to install it. Mm-hmm. And the motion detection, you said, can be tweaked so that you're not getting a lot of false positives coming in.
Absolutely, and that worked very well in my tests of it. Yeah.
How about low light nighttime? Are there infrared?
Yes, I think they mentioned infrared in the manual, but I'm not quite sure of that. But they do mention that it's specially designed to function in low light at night, and so you should be able to see who's at your front door even at night. Okay. So of course, if you have a light, over your door that goes on at night, that will enhance it. But I haven't actually checked yet. No one has come to our front door at night yet for me to see how it works, and I haven't checked that myself. But all the literature claims that it works well at night.
And this is one of those devices. I mean, there are several of them out there. It connects to your home Wi-Fi, and so you can theoretically answer the doorbell from anywhere in the world.
Yes, in fact, after I enabled the motion detection feature this morning, my wife, who was out shopping, started getting motion detection alerts on her iPhone, even though she was like 20, 30 miles away.
That's nice. That's really. I wondered when you said motion detection alerts, that's separate from somebody ringing the doorbell.
Yeah, I mean, it works exactly the same way. The technology is the same, except that it labels it differently. It'll say that this is a motion detection alert, or this is somebody ringing your doorbell. So you'll know, even if you're of course, if you're home, you'll hear the doorbell ring presumably. But even if you're not at home, you'll know which event is which.
I know we talked about this before, Ted, but what kind of pricing are we talking about here?
I believe it was $200.
Okay. And how much installation trouble was there?
Oh, none. It's as easy to install as they claim it is. It was super easy. I did it, no problem.
And I want to go back to the beginning of the story. You said that when you called the Ring service people that there was something wrong. Was that something that you had done incorrectly, or it had to be tweaked? And I don't want to get in the weeds here, but
it wasn't a hardware wrong. It was something had gone wrong. What was supposed to happen, as long as you're asking, is it was all supposed to be automatic. Essentially, after I added Naomi's name to the list, the next time that Naomi launched the Ring app on her iPhone, it was just supposed to be there. She didn't need to do anything, and that didn't happen. And so he finally suggested that I delete Naomi's name and start over completely. And this time it worked. And that's basically it. There is one thing that comes up as a problem with that regard, and that is the app does not support live screen refreshes. And so, for instance, after I added her name a second time, which ultimately worked, I looked on her iPhone, and it still didn't show anything. And he said, "Oh, you have to quit the app and relaunch it again for it to update like that." And I actually had the same thing happen to me where I charged the battery. They recommend the battery comes about 50% charged, and they recommend before you start using it to get it to 100% charge. And the iPhone app says the percentage of charge right on. It said 53% or something like that. And so I let it charge overnight, and I went the next morning, and I looked, and it still said 53% charged. And so I called them about that too. I said, "Hey, it seems like it's not charging." And they said, "Oh, you have to quit the app and relaunch it, and then it'll update." And that worked, and then it said 99% charged or something like that. So it would be nice if they were able to get the app to refresh the screen on its own, so you don't have to get into those little glitches. But once I understood that that's how it worked, it was a minor thing to deal with.
And it sounds like so many things that they're a version 1.0 of something that doesn't exactly, they haven't quite gotten all the kinks out yet. But and I say kinks, not even bugs, just kinks. That you just have to fiddle with it, just like we all do.
Yeah, and I mean, as long as I'm listing things that go wrong, every once in a while, when somebody rings the doorbell, the video doesn't kick in. I just get audio instead of audio and video. That maybe happens 1 out of 10 times or something like that. And I assume that that's a glitch that that will be fixed over time as well. But essentially, I mean, the bottom line for me is almost all the time it works exactly as described. It does what it said it would do, which is all I can ask of it. It alerts me when somebody rings the doorbell. It shows me on the iPhone who it is that's at the door. It has a motion detection feature that will detect motion even if nobody does ring the doorbell. I mean, those are the things I wanted. The main reason we got it was Naomi wanted something for security. Naomi wanted to be able to reliably see who is at the door without having to open the door. And the peephole that we had on our front door wasn't making it. And so I said, well, let's try some technology and see if that works. And it's been working well.
Gee, technology, what a shock.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad. It's nice to hear a unit like that get a positive review from someone that knows what they're doing. And, I almost feel like you got to expect a few glitches. I'm not giving them a pass, but I'm also not condemning them.
Yeah, it's very early. I mean, it's not even really a totally finished product. Like I said, this motion detection feature, I got an email about a week or two ago saying that they just finished it and that they We're going to roll it out to customers over the course of the next month. So sometime over the next month, you would get an email saying that it was activated for you, and I got mine this morning.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I may have to go shopping. Once again, you may have cost me money.
Well, I'll get my kickback and I'll send that to you.
Okay. Well, I've got to wait and see which watch I'm getting first.
No kickback there.
No, not unless you own Apple stock. Then you can view it maybe that way. But
I have Apple stock.
Yeah, I do too.
Just very nice after that. It seems like you have a lot more money when they split 7 for 1, and suddenly you had 7 times as much Apple stock. But try to ignore the fact that it's worth 1/7 as much as it.
Yeah, but it's had a nice little run up. Mm-hmm. When it split, it was under. I think it was under 100 at that point.
It was in the 90s, I think, Vince.
Yeah, and now it's hanging right around 130. So,
which is even at the split price, nice game. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So Ted and I are just sitting here on our stock, waiting for the Apple car.
Yeah, I'm ordering my yacht tomorrow.
Good. You live somewhere where you could use a yacht. I can't use a yacht here.
I get seasick if I'm in anything bigger than a bathtub, though. So.
I could use a snowblower and an ice scraper. So, well, it's good to have you back, Ted. I don't know when the next trip is, but until then, we'll try to make this a regular thing, and we'll see what happens with the Apple event and everything else that's coming down the pike.
Yeah, if we talk again in 2 weeks, which is about our schedule, it'll be after the Apple event, so that'll be a fine time to assess how things went. Yeah.
We both may be standing in line somewhere for an Apple Watch.
Yeah, I might get one. We'll see.
Okay.
I'll let you know in 2 weeks.
All right. Sounds good. Good to see you. Thanks for being here.
As always, I enjoy it. You're welcome.
Folks, we enjoy having you with us too. Please come back to Mac Voices. We'd love to have you comment on whatever we've said, whatever wisdom we've been able to share. And see you next time right here on Mac Notables on Mac Voices. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for links, show notes, to subscribe, to connect with Chuck on Twitter, Google+, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and the Mac Voices blog. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter, the Mac Voices Dispatch, to stay up to date on all the latest Mac Voices news from our front page or at macvoices.com/newsletter. Do more with your Apple tech by subscribing to the free Mac Voices magazine on Flipboard by visiting macvoices.com/magazine. Advertising and sponsorships handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.